Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swamin Hite Namani.
What was unique about the philosophy was that Prabhupada presented that God was two, a male and a female aspect of the ultimate divinity. So as I was saying, that goes back a long way, because when I was 8 years old, I was going to the Rosh Hashanah service with my father back in Buffalo. And I remember walking with him and wondering, does God ever have, like, you know, a female connection? And, you know, like, I didn't know the word at 8 years old, but like a conjugal, it was going through my mind. I always remember it. So when he presented the philosophy, I said, oh, okay, here it is. After 20 years, you know, here's where I must have gotten it. So the whole idea of the reincarnation, permanence of the soul, you know, the idea of a supreme conscious being that has a God side and a goddess side, that connected me pretty quickly. We were at the airport to greet him, and there was hundreds of devotees that came. And we had set up a seat for him. And when he entered, everyone was just so intense. I think that's the first time I ever cried. And it was a universal feeling there. And he was extremely happy with the reception. But then when we got down to get him picked up outside, we had gotten a car to come, and it was late. And Prabhupada waited a few minutes, and then he didn't like that. He didn't like being late. He didn't like waiting for things like that. So he said, I'll just take a taxi. And then right at the last minute, the car came. But it taught a lesson that he valued time. And later, as he would speak, he impressed that his time was limited here. And he didn't like waste of material, and he didn't like waste of time. And I think he stressed that with most of us, that not to waste facility, not to waste funds, not to waste food, not to waste time, not to, you know, to have a quick learning curve on things. Otherwise, he would be there at some point in the learning curve to make sure that it didn't peak, it kind of flattened out, and you learn the lessons as quickly as possible. And so I went to Europe, and it was unusual. I mean, I had taken some French in school, but the way the devotees were relating with each other, there was a lot of conflict. And so I got there, it was a little temple. We had no place to sleep, so I slept on a table top. And I knew Prabhupada was coming in Paris, and that was the next time that I saw him. It was in Paris. He put on a big initiation in these famous gardens in Paris. There was 1,000 people there. And then we went to the Salle Pleyel, and all the devotees from Europe had come. It was a big event. A lot of communists there. And we had put this big Vyasasana up. And after that, he said, maybe in these big meetings, I just sit on a mat because they can't understand all this. That's the time when he said to somebody, they were all rebellious communists at the time, and they were, why are you sitting on the throne? Why are they bowing at you? And so then he said, well, when you know the science of God as well as I do, then you can sit up here and they can bow to you. And then they quieted down. But that's when he said, maybe we go a little easy on the big chairs up there. But it was interesting to watch him remain undisturbed. As you know, he said, a Vaishnava is like the ocean. It may get ruffled on the top layer with big waves, but underneath stays calm. So he was teaching us not to get, he knew Westerners are easily agitated, and ready for the fight, So he taught us that lesson. I had sent Narottamananda to India. He was my friend from college, and he sent the deities, beautiful deities, and Prabhupada came back and installed them, and we gave him the Bhagavad Gita at that time, the French Bhagavad Gita. There's a little bit in between that, but Pradyumna had made all the bathing things. So it got back to that issue of Prabhupada was very efficient, and he didn't like waste. So he saw these giant bowls of things to bathe the deities, and he said from the Vyasa-san, why did you make such a giant amount? That's unnecessary. Just make little. What are we going to do with all of this? So everything was a lesson, But one part of the lecture was cute. He said, we're calling the deities Radha Paraseshwara. He said the Parisian French girls are the most beautiful in the world. So Krishna has come to get some French girls. Good sense of humor. The first time I remember being chastised by Prabhupada was when I walked into his room in Bombay to ask for a loan to buy New Mayapur. And he asked me why I didn't know that the building materials were being eaten by termites. And it wasn't casual, it was very serious. Like, you came all this way and you didn't notice that the contractor is giving us bad lumber. It was a chastisement. And the lesson was that if you work for Prabhupada, you're supposed to be a detailed person. And at one point he said, the best student is the one who doesn't need to ask a question, but just knows what to do. And the next best is he asks a question, so he knows what to do. And in last place is the person who thinks he knows what to do, but doesn't really know what to do, and makes a mess of everything. So he was concerned that everybody should be as concerned as he was about everything. Prabhupada, of course, saw everything as Krishna's energy, so nothing should be wasted or misused. So when he went into the bathrooms in Mayapur and he saw they were being misused and unclean, he would get upset. He wanted perfection in the sense that he wanted everybody to pay attention. He didn't want sleepers. Prabhupada made me and Rupanuga and Karandar like original BBT trustees. And he instilled that he didn't want changes, and changes had to go through him. In an unusual move, he let me design the European books the way I want it, different than how he did. And he just gave me that facility. But in speaking of changing and editing, of course, historically, these are the things which, even to the present moment, are causing the most unnecessary division within the society. There was editing, the position of gurus, and the role of women in Krishna consciousness. All these things have been partially resolved. Regarding the editing, I was an editor for parts of Krishna book, and so I can speak from experience that he liked my editing, and he just wanted it so that when you read the English, that it didn't sound like Indian English. That was the point. He wanted the English to flow. He didn't want it changed. He just wanted the sentence structure to be proper. It wasn't a major thing. People misheard things on the tapes. They typed things wrong. So it was like he didn't want English mistakes in his books. He didn't want editing beyond proper English, except when it was like Planet of the Trees instead of Planet of the Forefathers, obvious things. But it was difficult to do that even when Prabhupada was present, especially after Prabhupada's not present. To make changes is every devotee's on the lookout for that. So that is a part that still needs to be dealt with. That is the editing just to make the English better, or are you presenting your idea in a sentence that wasn't even there in the original? So that was the editing part. So being a BBT trustee, we were very aware of that. I was very, Hansaduda and I, we were allowed to kind of come up with the presentation of his books for the European class, and Prabhupada trusted us to do that. And they were very nice, and he loved them. And so we got a good score on that one. But editing is an issue, and it still is. And all I can say is that there's a difference between correcting the English in a sentence and putting your own thoughts in. He didn't want that. He didn't want everything redone. If something wasn't heard right on a Sanskrit word and it needed a different tense to it, or it was minor things. Otherwise, he said, when the Goswamis wrote a book, even if there was some minor, you just left it and you had to figure it out. At the time I could define it, he was always selfless. He never did anything for his own aggrandizement. He was always wanting to give. And when it appeared that he was receiving something, it was more to teach us the principles of humility, how to inquire, how to keep our egos down. But he was full. He was overflowing with knowledge and vision, and although you lived a lot for his smile and his approval, there was as much. You knew when he was chastising you that it wasn't to hurt you. It wasn't to penetrate your faith and your. I mean, he was pretty strong, and a lot of times it pretty much broke people because, it was like you felt the full weight that what you did affects not just you or not just him, but what you do can have ramifications for everything. So we all know that, we all learn that lesson one way or another. But he was just full. That's how I saw him. He was always ripe. At every moment you could touch him and Krishna would come out. Full like that. Karuna prachur